Dogs, they are man's best friend. We cannot live without them. But what would we do if we discovered that these beloved domesticated animals could increase the risk of exposure of disease-inflicting pathogens to wildlife species, such as the endangered African wild dog? The paper Contact with Domestic Dogs Increases Pathogen Exposure in Endangered African Wild Dogs from the journal PLOS ONE researches just this issue, subsequently finding some interesting results. A large decline in the number of species, in particular the wild dog or the Lycaon pictus, can be accredited to infectious diseases. Population crashes and some extinctions of the wild dog have been accredited to the rabies virus, canine distemper virus, and the bacterial pathogen of auriculosis, which is a tick-borne bacterial infection. Not only do these pathogens infect the wild dog, but they also infect the domestic dog. Knowing this, the authors of this paper hypothesized that domestic dogs transmit disease-causing pathogens to wild dogs. To test this idea, the authors of this paper created a test environment which included 2 different land types of community lands and commercial lands. So once they had developed their study areas, the authors of this paper had to test their hypothesis. So how did they do this, you may ask? Well, they started by capturing and immobilizing 90 wild dogs in 19 different packs and installing radio collars on the necks. Once done, they withdrew blood from the jugular vein of each wild dog. By analysing these blood samples, it was found that none of these wild dogs had any vaccinations against disease-inflicting pathogens. From here, the authors collected blood samples from 184 domesticated dogs, whose owners reported that their dogs did not have vaccinations against any pathogens. Once these blood samples had been taken, wild dogs and domestic dogs were placed in close contact of each other in either the community lands or the commercial lands. The authors of this paper found that their results were consistent with the hypothesis that was initially developed at the beginning of the paper. This was that domestic dogs transmit canine pathogens to wild dogs. It was found that there were no links between domestic dog contact risk and wild dogs' probability of exposure to canine distemper virus or canine coronavirus. In addition to this, it was found that there were no links between wild dog exposure to the pathogens and the contact with non-infected members of their pack. The authors' findings assisted in the identification of the most efficient and appropriate pathogen control methods. It was determined that by vaccinating either domestic dogs or wild dogs, the species will be protected from the disease-causing pathogens. By ensuring this,